The story begins with a child named John. We learn his parents have passed away, leaving him alone in the world. Since then, he has possessed an incredible talent for drawing cartoon and anime characters. Furthermore, he is remarkably brave and strong, with indescribable physical power. The last thing we heard about him was that he beat up 3 teachers much older than him because he had learned taekwondo and karate from his father and mother. On the other side, we learn that Officer Chun is looking for a child with exactly these specifications, aiming to adopt and train him to the highest level in combat. Officer Chun enlists the help of John's caretaker, then goes to speak with John. He asks him, "Don't you want to be like your father, famous everywhere?" John gives an unexpected reply. He prefers drawing over anything else in the world because it makes him happy and isolates him from everything. Officer Chun is impressed by his perspective. After that, Officer Chun adopts John and takes him in. He begins training him with the most intense drills and, in a short time, turns him into a professional fighter, spending enormous amounts of money to shape him into what you see now. Days pass, and John grows older. Chun takes him on and appoints him as a special operations officer. John's last mission was to capture the brother of a major terrorist and criminal named Jason. One night, we see John at the counter-terrorism agency. Commander Choi is addressing all officers, including John, informing them that their next mission is to capture the dangerous international terrorist, Jason. Afterwards, John returns home and starts drawing again. Meanwhile, Officer Chun calls him to continue the interrogation of Joy, Jason's terrorist brother. We see Joy tied to an electric chair, but it doesn't take long for him to lose his life due to the escalating electricity. Chun isn't content with having just created a winged dragon from John. We also see him adopt another child named Chol, who will, of course, follow the same path as John. John leaves the agency, and that same night, he is called for the mission to capture Jason before he learns of his brother's death. John boards a military plane and parachutes into the ocean at the specified location near Jason's ship. But a malfunction occurs. His parachute gets tangled and fails to open. John falls into the sea, and everyone assumes he has drowned and died. Chul is the most devastated, as he saw John as his role model. 15 years pass. To everyone's surprise, John emerges alive. We learn he faked his death to extricate himself from the counter-terrorism division and pursue his dream of becoming a comic book artist. We also learn John got married and had a daughter named Kyung. Time passes in John's life, and Kyung grows up. In contrast, his dream shrank over time until it nearly vanished. Even his wife became the main breadwinner due to his small income from the comics he draws. This way, John can neither achieve his own dream nor that of his daughter, who wished for a piano to learn music. Days go by with John stuck at his drawing board, unable to find a good, engaging ending for his latest story. Finally, he finishes it and sends it to his editor. Later, during a break, he becomes deeply discouraged after seeing the negative comments on his latest published story online. Afterwards, he goes down to shop for groceries. At that moment, he sees Kyung with her headphones on, unaware of her surroundings, and a car is about to hit her. He quickly pulls her to safety just in time. They sit down to chat for a bit. Kyung gives him an idea to write the story of his own life into his comics instead of the fictional stories people don't like. John tells her that if he does that, all of Korea would end up in prison because no one knows he was originally a special agent in counterterrorism. Kyung leaves him at that moment and walks to school with her friend. At that time, he gets a call from his editor, who keeps nagging him and decides to stop publishing the rest of his story. John is devastated, especially since he no longer has any income from it. With no other choice, he ends up working at a construction site with laborers to make some money. One night, driven to despair and drunk, he nearly takes his own life. But then he regains his composure, sits at his drawing board, and starts drawing, pouring all his pent-up frustration into a story. However, while drawing, he doesn't realize he is depicting his own past as a secret agent, which in itself is a catastrophe, as he is revealing classified crimes and very sensitive cases. Among these crimes is that of the international terrorist Jason. The next morning, John wakes up, has breakfast, and sobers up from his drunken state. When he looks back at the story before sending it to his editor, he is shocked to discover that instead of writing a normal fictional story, he wrote his own story from the beginning until he became the secret agent John. The bigger problem is that his wife published the story while he was asleep. For his wife, however, she is thrilled because the story broke the internet and achieved insanely high revenue. Quickly and without thinking, John returns to his workplace, meets the editor, and demands he stop publishing the rest of the comic series. The editor, of course, refuses after the first part's unprecedented success, knowing people will be waiting for the second part. John leaves work, not knowing what to do now that the story, with all its classified secrets, is in the memory of every Korean citizen. Meanwhile, the weather is cloudy and starts to rain. John remembers Kyung doesn't have an umbrella, so he rushes to her school to bring her home. There, he sees her standing with her friend, the daughter of a rich man. Feeling inadequate and unable to fulfill his daughter's musical dream, he withdraws and returns home. That night, he decides to wake up and pursue the dream that had been buried for years. From here, we see him continue the series about Agent John. This chapter opens with new events, mentioning dangerous crimes whose files were closed long ago. At the end of the chapter, John concludes with the case of capturing the dangerous terrorist and criminal, Jason. From the story's events, we learn that John killed him after they lost his eye, but Jason doesn't die and decides to return for revenge, especially after learning of his brother Joy's death. The story again breaks records with revenues many times higher than the first part. John finally fulfills Kyung's dream and buys her the piano she always wanted. On the other hand, Officer Chun goes to an arcade and asks about the person responsible for publishing the comic. He is shocked when he meets two children there talking about the story of Agent John and even discussing its events, which are supposed to be top secret. Chun is astonished that children of that age are aware of the counterterrorism agency's secrets. Immediately, he gathers most of the agency's judges and begins an intensive search for the person who drew this story. Commander Choi speaks, saying they must put a stop to the publication before it gets out of hand. He also says the person responsible for all the events in the story is John himself, because he is the only one who carried out all the cases and crimes mentioned. Chun is surprised and says John died years ago in a plane crash. We then learn that John was part of a special operations team named Team Shield. The last remaining member of this team is Chul, whom Officer Chun made follow in John's footsteps. Commander Choi summons Agent Chul, and they go to the publishing house that printed the story. There, they ask the editor who wrote it. The editor says the author is the cartoonist Kam. John changed his name to Kam to hide from them. At the same time, John is at the construction site working with the laborers. He gets a call from his editor asking him to come to the company to be thanked for the success. John, of course, can't leave work and hangs up. As for Chul, he tracks John's phone, pinpoints his exact location, and sends the police to him in less than a minute. The moment John sees the police approaching, he tears off his work clothes and runs to escape. Commander Choi and Agent Chul are watching his movements from the recording camera in the officer's glasses at the time. John can't run far from the site. The police corner him in the bathroom when he denies being John and tries to evade them. They all pounce on him, beating him relentlessly. But John doesn't take this lightly. He fights back, grabbing anyone he meets and slamming them against the wall. He strikes the remaining officers and throws them against the door behind him. After the fight, with the bathroom destroyed, John says they've brought back his rebellious days. He escapes the site and continues his escape from the rest of the police, swarming around him like ants. Commander Choi then sends several teams from the secret agency after him, warning them first that John is not someone anyone can easily handle. John keeps running until he finally makes his way home. He immediately calls his wife to tell her he is Agent John from the comic story. His wife doesn't believe him, so John hangs up and goes to get money to move away from the house. Unfortunately, he doesn't make it in time. Tear gas canisters are launched, surrounding him everywhere. He reacts instinctively, using his skills. Then he engages in combat with everyone entering through the window. Chul enters and removes his mask. Behind him, Commander Choi tases John and throws him to the ground, convulsing. After all this, they take him and transfer him to the agency immediately. At the same time, Jason is at the publishing house, assaulting all the employees for denying they know John, aka Cam the author. He then beats the editor too for denying knowing anyone by that name. In the interrogation room, John sits with Chul. Chul tells him he can't believe he fooled everyone and turned out to be alive. He then informs him that his entire team has died, and the reason for all these killings is a dangerous, unidentified criminal. At that moment, Officer Chun enters. He immediately kicks John in the stomach, knocking him off the chair. He then tells him that after writing his comic, he has opened the gates of hell for them and is very sad about all the money he spent on him, making him invincible. At that moment, Commander Choi enters, convinced that John is a traitor who sold the cases in the form of stories to get money from the criminals he works for. John denies all of this. When Choi brings up his daughter Kyung's file, John grabs him. Officer Chun and the commander manage to subdue him and take him out of the room. At that moment, John's phone rings from someone named the Viper. John initially thinks it's his wife, but when he answers, he discovers it's Jason. He had forgotten he had saved his contact from long ago. Jason warns him and says if he wants his wife back safe, he must listen and shut his mouth permanently. John remains silent. Then Jason demands that after John gets out of the agency, he must bring Chun to him to settle scores. So, to get out of the agency, John confesses to all the crimes against him so that Chun will be sent to him and he can leave with him. His plan works, and he manages to leave with Chun, holding a gun to his head so no one approaches. As for Chul, he is not worried because it's impossible to defeat his role model John. John then leaves with Chun to the garage, takes Chun's car, handcuffs him, and continues on his way. At the agency, Commander Choi monitors them via phone tracking. Meanwhile, on the road, a chase ensues between John and the operations teams, sent by Choi to capture John and bring Chun back before a disaster happens. In the midst of this, Jason calls John and tells him he doesn't want the police with him. John acts quickly and loses them all in the tunnel minutes before Jason's location. He gets out of the car and takes them all down, using his special skills, pulling them out one by one without anyone noticing. There's even a woman there impressed with him who spends a little time with him, but in the end, he deals with her like the others. After that, Chun gets out of the car, gets into another car, holds the driver at gunpoint, and continues on his way before Chul catches up with him in the car. Chun talks to John in the car, asking what the goal of all this adventure is, but John doesn't give a useful answer. At one point, John remembers that the publication date for the second part of his comic is approaching, which mocks Jason's brother's character, and even mentions the cause of his death, a catastrophe on top of a catastrophe. John calls his editor and asks him to cancel the publication, but the editor refuses after the story's massive success. It's too late. The story is already on all sites until it reaches Jason's phone screen. He sees the horrific way his brother died, making Jason even angrier and doubling his desire for revenge. At the same time, in the tunnel, after Commander Choi arrives at the scene of the incident with Chul, a policeman informs them that the terrorist Jason is in Korea. Commander Choi connects the dots and says Jason must have come to avenge his brother's death, and the one who leaked all the information is John through his comics. Commander Choi then orders the police to bring him John's daughter, Ki-young, to use as leverage and make him stop what he's doing. As for John himself, he doesn't care about anyone at this point and lets the police pin whatever crimes they want on him, as long as he can save his wife from Jason's hands. At that moment, Chun's phone rings. Commander Choi answers and tells him if he touches a single hair on his daughter, he will annihilate them all. To get John to change his mind, Choi sends him a video of Kyung and tells him he will throw her out of the car. John faces an incredibly difficult choice between his daughter and his wife. He makes a quick decision and continues towards Jason to save his wife from his evil, reasoning that the police would never hurt his daughter. Before John enters Jason's location to save his wife, he decides to drive around and leaves the warehouse. Jason is surprised by his actions but understands when John calls him and says he did it to go back and save his daughter, after which he will return Chun as agreed. Jason believes him. In return, Commander Choi brings Kyung to an agreed meeting point with John. At that moment, Chul, after learning she is John's daughter, decides to help her and helps her escape from the place because he believes John is not a traitor. Commander Choi, of course, goes crazy over what Chul did, but Chul doesn't care. He then calls John from Kyung's phone and reassures him about her. Later, he arranges to meet him somewhere to hand over his daughter. John changes his route again and heads to Chul. Kyung is indeed waiting for him, but Chul points his gun at John and tells him to surrender. At that moment, Kyung manages to sway Chul's emotions, making him release John. Afterwards, John explains and makes Chul understand the whole story from the beginning. Chul believes everything he says and that he is not a traitor as the police think. From here, the three members of Team S.H.I.E.L.D. continue together with one mission. Chul takes them to his secret hideout, where he has an arsenal of weapons collected for situations like this. John says they've brought his rebellious days back. He takes all the weapons in one bag, and Chun volunteers to carry it. Once the three are in the middle of the street, the police arrive with Commander Choi. Chul tells John and the others to go while he explains the situation to Commander Choi. To sell the story to Commander Choi, John punches Chul in the face to make it look like he captured him, not that he came willingly. After that, John, Chun, and Kyung get into one car and drive off. The problem for them is that the bag of weapons is actually with Chul, and they have no weapons to attack with. Commander Choi reaches Chul and beats him after learning he was with John and didn't believe the story he told him. He then tells him if he doesn't bring John back, he will kill him himself. At dawn, John arrives again at the warehouse where Jason is. He and Chun get out of the car and proceed with Jason's men. At that moment, Kyung acts smartly and calls Chul on video, giving him their exact location. She then turns the camera to her father, John, standing amidst Jason and his men. At that time, Commander Choi sends a team of special operations to storm the warehouse. and arrest the terrorist Jason. Jason then decides to torture Chun and John in the same way they killed his brother. We discover at that moment that the person behind the killings of Team S.H.I.E.L.D. members is Jason himself. To reach this moment, the bigger problem then is that Jason manages to capture John's wife before she can escape and has his men bring her before him. Suddenly, John's wife starts taking down all of Jason's men, hitting and knocking them out one after another, leaving their bodies all over the ground. But I must tell you that all of this is happening only in John's wife's imagination. None of it is happening in reality. The real problem then is that Jason goes down, beats Chun everywhere on his body, and breaks his bones to avenge his brother. He then puts him on the electric chair, exactly as he did to his brother. Here, John is forced to go through with torturing him in the same way he depicted in his story, without missing a single detail. At that moment, John is forced to obey orders because his wife's life is in Jason's hands. He goes and activates the electric chair, sending a high-voltage shock through his entire body. At the same time, Commander Choi is watching everything happening. From what he sees before him, it confirms his belief that John is the real criminal. But this is only what appears to him, because he doesn't know the truth and the story from the beginning. Immediately, Commander Choi sends his most skilled team from the Rapid Intervention Force to Jason's location. Meanwhile, John continues to electrocute Chun until his blood dries up. At that moment, Jason becomes reckless, grabs a flamethrower, aims it at them both, and decides to burn them together in one go. But behind them, the Rapid Intervention Force storms the warehouse. In less than moments, the entire police force enters and occupies the warehouse with their full numbers. After them, Commander Choi enters and subdues everyone with a single command. Jason is forced to surrender at that moment. At that moment, Chul goes to free Chun from the electric chair. As for John, he emerges from behind the container and clears himself of all crimes, saying Jason is the cause of everything. Choi, of course, doesn't believe him. Then Chun enters and says John is not a traitor. He was only trying to help his wife, nothing more. Commander Choi gets angry and hits everyone who stands in John's defense. He then orders the sniper to aim the laser at John to take him out first, not Jason. But the sniper is interrupted after Kyung gets out of the car and pushes her father away. With his family present, John becomes a difficult target. At that moment, Choi orders the sniper to shoot him anyway. Because of this, Chul defends him and takes the bullet in his shoulder instead. In seconds, John takes down the sniper and keeps his gun pointed at Choi's face to prevent him from harming anyone. At the same time, Chul is on the ground, his blood draining. At that moment, Jason's right-hand man attacks them after taking the sniper rifle and starts shooting at all the police. Because of this, John leaves Chul and directs his weapon towards him to finish him off. But Jason beats him to it and shoots John first, firing at every part of his body. John falls to the ground in a very emotional scene for everyone. After that, Jason subdues all police members, including Commander Choi. Chun and Chul look at their commander in disbelief after he entangled and drowned them with him. Jason even goes and punches him in the face, but suddenly, John rises from the dead. We discover he was wearing a bulletproof vest. He goes and hits an oxygen cylinder, exploding it among Jason's men. After that, the battle erupts again between all police members and Jason's men. At that time, Choi is hit again. John, Chul, and Chun take down all of Jason's men, delivering blow after blow. Afterwards, John immediately takes on an entire group of gangsters alone, fighting them all with all his strength, overpowering them where they stand. Behind him, Chun takes his family and escapes with them, but encounters Jason's right-hand man, who stops him and starts fighting him. He had seconds left before finishing him by the neck. Chun engages in a fierce fight with him again and finally hits him with a plank, making him fall to the ground, defeating him easily. We return to John, who grabs Jason and keeps hitting him after disarming him. At that time, the fight between the two of them is intense. They are both exhausted from the beating until John takes off his belt and then strikes Jason everywhere on his body, leaving him no choice but to be thrown from the second floor onto a car. And so, John finally completes his mission and, at the same time, concludes the final part of his story. A few days after these events, Chun meets with John and offers him to rejoin them and leave the comic business for good. But of course, John refuses and decides to live a normal life with his family and his stories. And that's how the story ends. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the like button. Let's reach 2,000 likes on this episode.